Hey everyone, welcome to Wealth Matters. My name is Warren. I'm a professional corporate banker in the City of London, and I'm here to help you master your money and build your long-term wealth. Today, I'm going to give you a beginner's guide to UK property so that you're able to have informed conversations with colleagues, friends, family, random strangers in the pub, and hold your own when it comes to talking about how property works. My monthly property market updates have proved pretty popular and well received, so I thought I'd make a video explaining the foundations of how the UK property market is set up, how it works, so that you can not only understand my monthly updates, but also be in a position to take advantage of them from a wealth building standpoint and hold your own and know what you're talking about when it comes to property. So let's start with some headline figures. So at the time of making this video, in England, specifically England, not the UK, there are 25 million homes and approximately 56 million people. So an average of 2.2 people to each household in England. Now in the UK, and for those of you watching overseas, the UK is, let me see if I can get this right, England, Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland. Pretty sure I haven't forgotten any countries. If I have, I apologise. But in the UK, there are approximately 67 million people, of which 2.7 million, so 4% are landlords. So if you own a buy-to-let house, you're a rare Pokemon, very rare. You're like a Mewtwo or a Zapdos, for those of you who watch old school Pokemon. So what does that mean? When it comes to purchasing property in the UK, there's relatively low competition from other UK buyers. So there's lots of opportunities out there. I found that myself through my journey of owning 3 buy-to-let properties. The real competition from overseas and domestically starts to increase, particularly for new build developments in prime areas of major cities like central London, prime areas of Manchester, Liverpool, Birmingham, those prime cities in the UK. But relatively speaking, in general, this is a fraction. Those cities and those areas are a fraction of the total housing stock across the UK. So if you're looking to get into property investing in the UK, there are plenty of opportunities out there. Don't believe the guff. Don't believe the media hype that property is dying and hearsay. Property is healthy. Over the past 24 months, guys, I have visited Crewe, Doncaster, Nottingham, Liverpool, Swindon, to name a few cities, and viewed properties that I'd invest in tomorrow if I had the money. I just need to win the lottery, guys. That's how confident I am that there are good deals to be had in UK property. And if you're an investor yourself or you've been doing your own research, let me know, let others know what the hotspots are in the comment section below. So let's talk about price growth within the UK over time. Now, I remember when I first heard this stat blew my mind, and I always wondered why it wasn't widely published and talked about. But the official data shows us that on average, over the last 30 years, the price of a UK property has more than doubled every 10 years. To be exact, the growth is 140% every 10 years across the UK on average since 1990. Now, this has slowed down over the last 10 years to just under 50%. But when you consider in that period over the last 10 years, we've had a global pandemic, we've had Brexit, we've had the back end of the last global recession that started in 2008, 2009, 50% despite all that looks pretty damn good, guys. So that's a summary of how prices grow in the UK. What does that mean for you? Well, as long as you choose right, I'm talking a good area, near to transport links, investments coming into the city and infrastructure, etc., you are very likely, guys, to build wealth over the long term if you choose well. Myself and my wife, we personally own 4 properties, 1 that we live in and 3 buy-to-lets in prime city centre locations. So that fills me with a lot of optimism when it comes to my family's future wealth down the line. I'm confident that if I stopped investing today and did nothing else, my children will be absolutely set. They'll be fine because these properties are going to grow over time, especially when you look at what these specific cities that I'm in have done historically. By the way, guys, if you'd like a free ebook on an introduction of how to invest in property, check out the link in the description section below. I made a free ebook on that. Download it now if you want. So why do property prices grow at such a healthy rate in the UK? I'm glad you asked. Now, this is probably a stat that you have heard in the news, on your social media, in the pub. There's an undersupply of homes in the UK. When demand is higher than supply, prices go up. It's basic economics. We all learned that at school. And that applies to anything, including the property market. Except it doesn't, guys. Don't take my word for it. Let's look at the official data. Since 1996, the number of new houses built has grown by 3.7 million. 3.7 million new houses built in the UK since 1996, whilst the number of UK households has risen by 3.5 million, okay, over the same period. So in other words, housing stock has outgrown population growth. There are enough homes for everyone in the UK. And that goes for London too, by the way. We're not going to have to start developing underground civilizations because there's no more space above ground and there's no space to build houses, as the government and media would have you believe. Guys, the data disproves this. Let me give you some more data to back this up. If there has been a critical shortage of houses in the UK, you'd expect to see rents rise sharply. Why? Because lack of houses would be more competition amongst renters and they would outbid each other, competing for limited space and rooms in the UK. So you would expect to see rents do that, guys, over the long term. But again, when we look at the data, rents have risen roughly at the same rate as wages over time. Does that surprise you? Has anyone ever given you stats like these before? I'm really curious. Let me know in the comment section below. But of course, I did tell you at the beginning of this video that property prices certainly do rise healthily and consistently in the UK over time. So if our solid property price growth in the UK is not down to undersupply, then what has caused these house prices to grow from 3.5 times your salary, the average salary in 1996, to 8 times your salary today? Very high rise. A very credible answer to this, guys, seems to be the availability of credit, specifically low interest rates globally. And I'll explain what these have to do with the sustained rise in property prices in the UK. When interest rates are lower, people borrow more and they pay more for assets. That's how it works. So for example, if interest rates were, say, 2%, and I took out a £100,000 25-year mortgage, over the term, I'd repay £127,000, including interest. That's scenario A. Now, scenario B, if interest rates were 8% instead of 2%, and I took out a smaller loan, not £100,000, but say £65,000, I'd actually repay more over the term of the loan, £150,000 to be exact, due to the higher interest rate. So you can borrow more and repay less when interest rates are lower, which is common sense. So the theory is that lower global interest rates have encouraged, especially over the last decade, have encouraged a lot more borrowing and higher prices paid for UK property. The second main reason for the historic growth is the availability of credit. Now, I joined the banking industry in 2008, when the economy was on fire, it was burning down. In fact, bloody inferno is probably a better metaphor. And not to oversimplify, but a lot of this was due to irresponsible lending by us banks. We were giving away mortgages like Oprah gives away cars on our show. But if you remember, the property market was actually booming just before the crash. And we haven't seen that kind of accelerated growth, that unprecedented growth since then. I mean, you can see from the graph right here that because it was so easy to get a mortgage, everyone and their dog were borrowing to get mortgages and bidding up the prices of property. People were paying silly money. They were paying prices for properties that weren't worth that. It was nuts. And this is a second reason for historic UK growth that we've seen over the years. And now lastly, let's talk about affordability of houses in the UK and how that's changed over time. We've got the data for house prices and wages in England and Wales going back over the last 23 years. Average wages were £17,000 in 1997. Meanwhile, average house prices have gone from £60,000 to £250,000 over that same period. So you've seen a 100% increase in wages, but 400% increase in property prices over that same period compared to wage growth. Now, this row highlighted orange illustrates the relationship between the two really nicely. If you bought a house in 1997, it would have been on average 3.5 times your wage. If you buy one now, it's just under 8 times your wage. UK property prices have consistently become less and less affordable for us over time, guys. God knows what it's going to be like for our children and our children's children. So those are the basics of the UK property market, guys. You can now talk about this subject with confidence and know what you're talking about, and not just accept the media and government narratives that are put out there about property, because we're backing what we say up with data. Guys, if you found this video useful, I'd really appreciate if if you drop me a like. It helps recommend this video to others and gets my content out there and build the channel. I put a lot of time into these videos. Leave a comment below, subscribe if you want to see more of this type of content, and I'll see you guys soon.